Hello, namaste, and a very good evening. Welcome to Chitti Media and the Festival of Bharat. I'm your host, Sharan Sethi. At the Festival of Bharat, we have been producing content and interviewing diplomats, entrepreneurs, spiritual gurus, ambassadors, you name it, for a very long time. And what we've created an encyclopedia of anything that is truly Indian and Dharmic. We've had guests from around the world before, and today I'm privileged and honored to introduce another very special guest all the way from Israel to you. Namaste, Hananya ji. How are you?
Namaste, shalom. It's amazing to be here with you. I'm here in Israel, but I most definitely feel like I'm at home when I speak to Indians.
That's such a good compliment. Thank you so much, and shalom to you too. Hananya ji is an Israeli media star. He's an advocate for peace in the Middle East, and he's worked with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu before, and he's somebody who's very fond of India and Indians. First of all, what would your opening words in our conversation be? What is your message to India and Indians?
I would say, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much because I think that it is because of the Israeli people and the Indian people that our alliance has come to this, because it's not just an alliance. Many countries around the world have relations based on interests, which is acceptable. But I think that between Israel and India, it's not just interests, and it's not just cooperation. It's really family. It's Israelis, when they finish their military service, they go to India. That's one of the most loved destinations for Israelis. So definitely, I would say that thank you to the Indian nation for accepting us like this. And I want to say as well that you will be very, very warmly welcomed and accepted by Israelis.
I'd love to visit Israel sometime, and hopefully that happens very soon. And you should visit India sometime too. Hananya ji, what brings Israelis towards India? Like you were already mentioning in the conversation earlier, a lot of people after finishing their service or their education or before they enter the service, it's auspicious or rather very special for them to visit India. Why do Israelis feel that connect with India?
Well, that's a very important and interesting question. I think that, first of all, if we talk about the cooperation between Israel and India, it highlights in military, defense, security, medicine, agriculture, innovation, startup, and so much more. And that really attracts the Israelis and Indians together, because people like to ask why is there so much love between Israel and India? And it's exactly that. It's a perfect match made in heaven. Brilliant minds are coming together to make our nations greater. But also, it's not just about minds that are met, it's our hearts. The hearts of Israelis and Indians are just tied together. And I think that, also talking about the value of Israel to India and India to Israel, because I have to say that it's very interesting that the largest democracy in the world, India, is the best friend to one of the smallest countries in the world, and Israel. But Israel may be a small country, but it is indeed a world superpower when it comes to all these technological and defense and agricultural aspects, which is one of the reasons why Israel is valuable to India. But also, India is very, very valuable to Israel because of the brilliant minds, brilliant workforce. And also, I think that in the times that we live in, where you see the West decreasing and the East rising, I think that supporting India is something that every human being should do, regardless of your location, because you do want to see India stronger. And because strong India is a strong Israel, and a strong Israel is a strong India.
Thank you so much. You're very kind with that. Uh, One of the factors that has boosted this relationship, which was stagnant for a few years, if I may add, because of varying political atmospheres, both in Israel and in India. But after Prime Minister Narendra Modi took over and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came to power in Israel, the ties have been closer than ever. And Prime Minister Modi became the first Indian head of state to visit Israel just a few years ago. So, how did Israelis respond to that?
Wow, I have to say that we Israelis were just amazed. I remember I was here in Israel, and like you see this on the news, they talk about the how everyone is expecting the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and to see him and Netanyahu, former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, walking in the shores of the Mediterranean Sea together and visiting. I think that us Israelis and the Jewish nation especially loved to see Narendra Modi visiting Yad Vashem and acknowledging the Holocaust and vowing to make sure that Jews will never again suffer anything like this. But yeah, Israelis were super, super excited to see Modi visiting here, because to us, he is the one that, took the relations between India and Israel to the next level. He did this because, yeah, so we Israelis are just grateful for that.
Why do you think it took us so long to revive these ties? Because these are not just bilateral ties that you see with any country that a particular nation might be willing to have those ties with. Because I feel that Israel and India have historical ties, they have civilizational ties. So in that sense, where did we lose that connection?
Mm. I think the best question is, why did Israel and India not have a normal relationships until 1991 after Kargil War? And look, it's a fact that India didn't recognize Israel fully in 1948 because some may say that it's because the relations of between India and the Arab world, it did not want to risk that. That's from the international aspect. The Indian National Congress feared that warm relations with Israel would harm India's economy. And domestic, also the Indian National Congress feared that supporting Israel would mean losing Muslim votes. And also the newly established state of Israel was something that was new to the political arena. So I think maybe the Congress wasn't fully sure how is this going to develop. But we see how Israel supported India time and time again during the Indo-Pakistan War in 1971, during the Kargil War in 1991, when other countries did not want to support or were afraid to support, Israel was there for India. And I think that Israel proved India that it is a reliable friend, and not just a friend, but someone that you call family. And we've seen that also during COVID, how India opened its skies when Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Modi, closed the skies to other countries. He did open so that Israel could get medicine from India, and vice versa. Israel helped India with oxygen concentrators and basically saved lives of Indians. So, and also I have to add to that, we're talking about modern history, but it's actually a fact that in the relations between India and the Jews are going back many years ago, and it's also, I would say, based in the Indo-Mediterranean trade relations that were in the, I think, mid-second millennium before Common Era. It's actually known that there were expensive garments in the temple in Jerusalem that were imported from India via Alexandria. So this spice trade, also known as spice trade, happened thousands of years ago, and I think that this is just amazing to see how even before diplomacy existed between Israel and India, we did have relations.
Thank you so much for that beautiful answer. And I have to add that your political acumen and understanding of India's foreign policy is far better than most Indians, for that matter, because you were able to summarize it with such accuracy. And this is something. This is one of the reasons why we lost that connect with Israel for a short period after 1940s and 50s, for that matter. You also spoke about how Israel has always stood with India, especially during times of conflict. And we want you to know that we are very grateful to Israel, because those were the crucial times when India was under attack from different forces across the borders. But in spite of the ambiguity that India may have had due to its internal reasons, vis-a-vis Israel and Palestine, for that matter, Israel continued to support India by providing arms and ammunition and whatever sort of support was required from time to time, especially at the most crucial junctures. What makes India so valuable to Israel?
Uh, that's an amazing question. I also have to say that I love India so much that I just chose to study the history and the political aspects. And I have to say that, from the Israeli perspective, looking into India, I see that ever since Prime Minister Modi, that took the relations between Israel and India to the next level, but also ever since BJP came to power, there is openness. And as an Israeli, I see that India became a very, very strong country and mostly respected. Because if I may say carefully, comment on the Indian National Congress, that I think it was afraid that, it was led by fear in many cases, that maybe we'll lose Muslim votes, maybe they will not like us, maybe secularism is the best. But what I like with Prime Minister Narendra Modi is that he was like, we're going to lead India through strength, not fear. We're going to embrace religion. We are not going to attack any religion, but we are going to fight for the safety and safeguard the lives of Hindus, Christians, Muslims, as long as there's no radicalism. So obviously, it's one of the reasons why Israelis love Modi so much. I have to say why. Before we move to the next question, you ask why is India so valuable to Israel? You can see in the defense aspect. There is the situation with Kashmir. We in Israel are facing pretty much the same problem with the Palestinian conflict. Kashmir is Indian land. You cannot argue that Kashmir is historically India. If someone comes to you and says Kashmir is Pakistan, this is stupid people. You cannot argue that Kashmir is Indian. Same thing that we are dealing with. We have Judea and Samaria that are claimed by Palestinians. But if you look at history, Jews were there, so you cannot argue with that. Right now, we are trying to solve Israelis. We don't have a problem with Palestinians. We respect them, but we demand this respect back. In the same way with Indians, they respect their neighbors, but they demand this respect back. And if this respect is not happening and attacks are happening, then yes, we will defend ourselves. And I think that this brought India and Israel even closer, having dealing with these different yet very similar conflicts.
You're very spot on with the parallels that you just introduced, because these are the problems that both Israel and India have been facing for a very long time. And may I add that you should watch the Kashmir Files sometime, the movie. I'm sure you
I cannot wait. I cannot wait to watch it. Yeah.
So whenever it's on OTT, perhaps you can watch it, and that also explains the forgotten history of of the presence of Hindus in that valley for a very long time, and it dates back thousands and thousands of years. And only the modern fabricated history has been represented to us for a very long time. But anyway, we'll not get into those matters, which are rather political. The term Hindu or Jew or Judean is not just another one from the dictionary, right? Because it has a cultural connotation. It is also a geographical term. Like when you say Hindu, Hindu is not just a religious term that represents a certain person. It essentially means that these are the people which belong to a certain geographical area. So, do you think that Israel and India that way are connected civilizationally as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that it's something that people should understand, that, and again, if I'm not wrong, this is an Israeli who learned a little bit about the history of India, but I think that the name Hindu stems from a river that was there, if I'm not wrong. So obviously it's a geographical aspect. Same with Jews. We are called Jews because it's not just a religion. We have secular Jews. We have Jews that don't believe in anything. Being a Jew doesn't mean that you are religious. It means that you are from Judea. So I would say that this is very, very similar. And again, it only puts more light on why the relationship between Jews and Hindus and Israelis and Indians is so strong, because even though we are far away from each other, and there is a very land difference. India is huge and Israel is so small, but still we are dealing with a lot of the same conflicts and challenges. And I think that nowadays we see this with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and with Kashmir. But, to us Israelis, Judea and Samaria is a fact that it's Israeli. You cannot argue with history. Maybe you can argue with about present, about finding a solution. But same thing with Kashmir. Kashmir is India, whether your neighbors like it or not. And I'm actually very happy to see that India is making sure that Kashmir stays that way, because we cannot allow, because if they start and occupy Kashmir, you think that they will stop there? No, they will not stop there. So I'm very happy that India stands its ground and shows its sovereignty.
The one thing that I admire the most about Israelis is the amazing amount of clarity and confidence they have about their values, about what they stand for, and about what they really want. And for a very long time, because of several reasons, Indians have become underconfident and they've forgotten what greatness there once existed in our own civilization. And I hope through the content that you are producing and we are producing, more and more people are educated that way. Since you also are a student of India and the Hindus, you read about us as much as you can. Can you tell us more about the history of Jews in India, how the two cultures synchronized, and how their lives are right now in India? It'll be very interesting because we only know for a fact that there was no anti-Semitism in India, but that's it. But beyond that, we don't know much about the communities that live here, or how they lead their lives, etc.
Absolutely. It's very interesting because India is home to three historically Jewish communities. The big ones, it's Bene Israel, Cochin Jews, and Baghdadi Jews. And on the top of that, you have Bnei Menashe and Bnei Ephraim. Now, it's very interesting because the Cochin Jews who first arrived in the contemporary state of Kerala, they came about the year 50 Common Era. And the story tells that they moved into the country after the first temple was destroyed during the siege of Jerusalem. So they escaped war, and they were warmly welcomed by the Chera dynasty that ruled the area. That's a little bit of history, but I mean, it's hard to know the origin of the history of the Bnei Israel community. But this, again, the story tells that there was a shipwreck, and they found refuge in India and settled there. And obviously, it is really, really amazing that Jews in India never suffered persecution. Jews in India immediately felt at home. And let me give you a quick example. The some of the Bene Israel, which is a very big Jewish community in India, I think the largest, they came to Karachi too, which is Pakistan today, and settled there.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say that because of Pakistan's policy towards Jews, it was very bad. And following the reestablishment of the state of Israel, they were literally persecuting Jews in Karachi, just like they are persecuting Hindus today. They wanted to exterminate the Jews out of hate, and on the top of that, they also destroyed in 1988 a very, very important synagogue called Magen Shalom. And they built on the top of that a shopping center. So they destroyed a synagogue, a holy place, to build a shopping center there in Karachi, Pakistan. And if you look today according to reports that are happening in Pakistan, there's only one Jewish man left in Pakistan, as opposed to the thriving Jewish community in India. And this only shows you the Jews in India are safe. They are protected. And it's just amazing to see that happening. That in India, I've never been to India, but I feel like my heart is in India, and it is, I think, mainly because Indians preach tolerance, coexistence, and I would say most of all respect. They will respect you, but of course they will demand the respect back. And I think that there is a mutual respect between Jews and Hindus. And I think that this is what led to perhaps the strong alliance that we have today.
It's indeed very true what you said, because I think in the case of Afghanistan as well, it's very similar. I remember when I was in Kabul, there was only one Jewish man left over there. And I think he also expressed his desire to go back to Israel, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't followed up on what exactly happened to that man. And indeed, our hearts go out to the Jews that are persecuted even today all around the world. Hananya, what I want to ask you is anti-Semitism awareness is still a work in progress. Many people are actively persecuting Jews around the world even today. What qualifies for anti-Semitism? Because it's not just an active persecution of a particular religion. It's much more than that. So how does that work? And why do you think India hasn't seen a single case of anti-Semitism today?
That's a very interesting question. Anti-Semitism is rising, and it's very worrying, especially considering the fact that Jews, 6 million of them, were exterminated in the name of anti-Semitism, in the hands of the Nazis and their collaborators. We saw what anti-Semitism gave to the world, the fruits of anti-Semitism, which is destruction, death, and hate, and racism. And still it exists today. It means that there are humans that either are uneducated, or they truly believe in the neo-Nazi movement that is emerging. But the fact is that anti-Semitism exists. This evil, disease that is more dangerous than coronavirus is rising. We see more anti-Semitic attacks in the United States, in Europe, and Jews are advised to hide their Jewish identity in Europe. I just visited Dubai, United Arab Emirates, recently, and I put my kippah, on my head, and I was welcomed as a proud Jew. So it's really amazing to see this change, that in Arab countries now Jews are welcomed as proud Jews, but in Europe and the West, some Jews are advised to hide their identity. I think that number one, what's very important is to know how to combat this, and it's to educate people. I think it should be made compulsory to to learn about the history of the Holocaust, so that because it happened to the Jews. Who tells you that it cannot happen to Hindus? I mean, it is unfortunately Hindus are persecuted, and you know, you have many other groups that are persecuted around the world. So we have to know and learn from history, so that we can make sure that it does not happen not only to Jews but to your group of people. And just like you stated, it's not a problem with religion. It's a problem with the fact that I'm a Jew and I'm breathing. They do not want this to happen. You know, they don't want to see Jews breathing. They don't want, they believe that Jews are controlling the world, and are led by a radical ideology. Now, talking about India, I think it's really amazing to see how there is not a single anti-Semitic incident recorded in India. Of course, I do have to say that unfortunately there are radicals everywhere. And I have seen radical Islamists in India burning the flag of Israel, protesting against Israel. I think that if they would know that that someone is a Jew, perhaps they would attack them too. But again, it's this radical ideology minority, I have to say. And as for Jews being safe in India, I know that this is a fact, and I know that under the current leadership, it will stay that way.
Indeed, Israeli convoys are attacked even in India, occasionally, and that's done by some really shady anti-state actors, which India has been proactively hunting down. When we talk about, you're actually very right when you compared that. Israel is one tiny country in that particular peninsula, whose existence has to be wiped out, is what some of the Arab nations actually believe, or believe to a very large extent. Hindus also believe the same about India, because we are just one country, and we are officially not even Hindu in nature. We are a secular country. So where do people who are persecuted, even in our own neighborhood like Bangladesh or Pakistan or Afghanistan, have to go? They have to come back to India. And the feelings are mutual, is what I wanted to convey to you. When we talk about Israel or Israelis in India, what we admire the most is the patriotism, is the dedication to wake up every day, to go back to work, thinking that you need to contribute your bit to your country. Because it is a matter of existence for Israelis even today, unfortunately. And in spite of all of that, Israel has developed into one of the most advanced countries in the world, economically, militarily, socially. What is it, how has the journey been so far, as an Israeli?
That's an amazing statement. And I have to add on the top of that what unites what we have in common, Jews and Israelis and Indians, is that both of us love our countries. Now, some people think that it's a crime, and they portray it as a crime. I think it's something that everyone should have the ability to do that, to love their country and to support their country. And yeah, we are proud patriots. And the story of Israel is just amazing. It's impossible to tell it in just 5 minutes. But I will say that empire after empire, it was the Roman, it was the Greek, it was the Ottoman. They came into our land. They some of them attempted to destroy the Jewish people, and again we survived, and we were standing at the graveyard of our persecutors. And I think that it is the Jewish spirit that kept us alive this whole time. It's being loyal to our traditions, our culture, and really believing in our future. And I think that it's somewhat similar to the Indian nation, that Indians understand. At least that's what I hope, that if they will not support India, who will? Obviously, you have a lot of friends around the world but it is the task of Indians to build India. It's especially having all these neighbors that some of them don't really want to see a strong India. So yeah.
And I just wanted to ask you, now you're advocating for peace in that region, and you have become a media personality, you're a star even in India. So when did you decide to do all of this? And could you also share some anecdotes when you worked with former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yeah, absolutely. Nowadays I have obviously compared to the population in India, it's very small, but I have approximately 1.7 million followers across social media. And I started when I was in the military. I was a soldier in the Israel Defense Forces. This is why I really relate to the Indian Army and the Indian brave soldiers. I served in the Armored Corps. I was sent to Gaza to fight Hamas, the terrorist group that was firing rockets day and night at Israeli families and communities. And our task was to bomb and destroy the terror tunnels. And we have successfully done that. But you know what really surprised me is that when I came back from Gaza, I opened my phone, I read the news, obviously called my parents, but I saw that the media, the mainstream media, was bashing Israel. They were saying that we are committing war crimes. I saw protests in major cities in Europe, London, Berlin, burning the flag of Israel and calling us, spreading lies, misinformation. And I was angry because I was just there. I was just there fighting and defending against terrorists, and they were calling us terrorists. So I said, once this operation is coming to an end, I'm going to do something about it, and I'm going to tell my story, create friends around the world with the Israel story, because I think much like in India, that there is a lot of misinformation being spread about the actions that are done, whether in Kashmir or in Judea and Samaria, and we don't like that. So that's how I started. I started to make videos, just me. I'm not part of any organization. I was just me telling my story. What are my thoughts? Obviously, I don't think that Israel is a perfect country, but show me one perfect country. There is no country that is perfect. Each country has its challenges, but the fact that Israel is time and time again being bashed at the UN, 14 resolutions passed against Israel in 2021 versus 4 against the rest of the world. This is just unbelievable. So I decided to take a stand. My English wasn't perfect. I didn't really know how to edit videos. I didn't have all the resources, but I built everything, and I was really happy, especially to be able to make the relations with the Indian people, because I feel like, unfortunately, I feel like sometimes Indians are overlooked and are not given attention, and I think that this is a fatal mistake. You cannot ignore the Indian nation. You cannot say that Indians are not important. Indians are some of the most important people that are out there. And I was really happy to make these friendships with so many Indians around the world. And it's actually very funny that Indians are all around the world. It's not just India. When I was in Dubai, I met so many Indian people. Even some of them recognized me from my videos. So it was really interesting. And yes, I also
thousands of people just go to Dubai only for shopping in a particular month in February or March. And that's the craze we have with shopping in the Middle East.
Yeah, absolutely. I was there in March, so the beginning of this month. But I have to say that yes, I also worked for Prime Minister Netanyahu in 2018. I was an employee of the Prime Minister office of Israel, and I still do work for him as the head of the opposition right now. And I have to say that it has been some of the some of my craziest experience ever, because I started to work for him when I was 22 years old. And it's really amazing to see how he believes in the young generation and gives a chance to the young people. And he loves to surround himself with young, brilliant minds. And I think that it really shows a lot about how he believes in the future and innovation and in the next generation. Because whether we like it or not, currently the next generation is us, people that are young, and having to learn from the ones that are above us, the older generation. I think it's just amazing. And also to see him love, to see his great love and appreciation for Prime Minister Narendra Modi is just amazing. And also to see the love from Modi to Netanyahu is just remarkable. I cannot forget the image of when Prime Minister Narendra Modi surprised Prime Minister Netanyahu when he landed in India, and he came and hugged him. It was not planned, but it just shows the strong friendship that he just couldn't wait. So he came and congratulated him upon landing in India. So it really, I think that Benjamin Netanyahu and Narendra Modi played and still playing a very, very important role in building the alliance between Israel and India. Right. And it's just amazing to witness this firsthand.
That's really heartwarming. I think that's the symbol of real friendship, because when you go into somebody's house, just crash over and then tell them that, hey, I'm here, why don't you receive me? That means that you are really good friends and you don't need to be invited to come over. That's True. Extremely heartwarming to know. Since we're also talking about peace in the Middle East, let me directly ask you this. Can that actually be achieved at all?
Of course. And not only that, it is being achieved. If in 1948 or 1950, the Indian National Congress was afraid that relations with Israel will harm relations with the Arab world, today it's a different game. The rules have changed, because nowadays Israel has some relations with any country in the Middle East, almost any country in the Middle East, whether it's most of it is under the radar, but we did make peace with the UAE, with Bahrain, with in Africa, Morocco and Sudan. And so it's really amazing to see that this dream is becoming a reality. And I think that it's based in the understanding and the realization of the Arab world that Israel is not their enemy, and that partnership with Israel will obviously benefit their economies, but also it's a step closer to because relations with Israel is strengthening their countries as well, not only in tourism and technology and economy, but also the people, the exchange of cultural traditions and stuff like that. So I think that peace is not only achievable, it is being achieved. And I have to say that it's even more amazing that when I flew back from Dubai to Israel, and also to Dubai, we used the Saudi airspace. And although we do not have diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia officially, I do want to say that it's just amazing to see Arabs being more and more open to Israel. And it's based in the root that the Palestinian issue is no longer the main issue. I think that in the past decades, the Palestinian leadership enjoyed being the most loved figure in the Arab League. But today it's different. The Palestinian leadership used to enjoy being the wall that separates between Israel and the Arab world. Today it's no longer the issue. The Arab world understands that Israel wants peace. Israel wants to move forward. Yes, we are here. The Palestinians are here. We want to find a solution and move forward. There's no need to be stuck in the past. But the fact that they time and time again refuse to make peace. I don't know if Indians know this, but Israel made a lot of peace offers to the Palestinians, including giving land back, which is something that I strongly oppose, because peace, true peace, comes in exchange for peace, not with any concessions. You cannot make peace in exchange for land, because it's not real peace. And we see real peace with the UAE, with Bahrain, with Morocco, seeing peace for peace, peace in exchange for peace. So peace is being made. And I think that it's amazing news to India as well.
Absolutely. Indeed, after Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman took over as the chief of the country, things are seeming positive, not just for India and Israel, but even for Saudis as well in general, with a lot of freedom and liberties and economic liberalization, being put into action. Hananya ji, before we conclude, India and Israel are officially commemorating 30 years of friendship, and you have a lot of fans and followers from India. So is there a particular message you would like to send across to India and Indians?
Well, I have to say that to the India nation, I cannot wait to visit India. I think India is an amazing subcontinent that is home for so many religions, languages, cultures, traditions. You cannot go about life without visiting India. This is a fact. And I do want to thank the Indian people for being such good friends. That it really feels like it is family. And to see the strong cooperation that is undergoing between our two nations in terms of security, defense, innovation, agriculture, technology, we are making India stronger and Israel stronger at the same time. And on the top of that, we love each other. So it's not just interests. I think that it's really amazing.
I hope this friendship continues and prospers for a very long time. And we look forward to hosting you in India, and please do visit us, and I'd love to take you around. You're most welcome, and we can't wait to see you here. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Hananya ji. Thank you so much. Namaste and shalom.
Thank you. Shalom. Namaste.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Chitti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.